The word translated as month in our English Bibles, the Hebrew word or Hebrew words for month. The Hebrew word is Chodesh. We spell it in English Chodesh, but the C at the front is kind of silent. So if you want to sound real smart when you're talking about this, you tell them, I know a little bit of Hebrew, Chodesh. There's also two other words that we're going to talk about below Chodesh there, and it's yerach and yareach. Yerach and yareach. So, but first we go to Chodesh. It has been said by solar-only people that the word Chodesh has no relation to the moon, even though every English Bible that I'm aware of translates the word not only as month, but also as new moon. So the word Chodesh is found about 279 times in the Old Testament. And if you look at the King James Version, 18 times it's translated as new moon, 22 times it's translated as new moons, plural, and then the other times, 239, it's translated as month or monthly. That's in the KJV again. So if the word Chodesh has no relation to the moon, why do all Bible translators relate the moon to the word Chodesh in their translation? This is not just one translation or two. Every single one of them translate it new moon sometimes in Scripture. So we'll get to the words yerach and yareach shortly. Here are the three Hebrew lexicons or dictionaries that I have in my library. All three of them tie the word Chodesh to the moon. Strong's says the new moon, by implication a month, translated as month, monthly, or new moon. Brown Drivers and Briggs, Chodesh, the new moon, month, monthly, the first day of the month, the lunar month. And Gesenius says the new moon, the day of the new moon, the calends of a lunar month, which was the festival of the ancient Hebrews, a lunar month beginning at the new moon, the period of a month. So that's the three I have in my library, and I've looked up others on the internet. Scholars determine word definitions based upon how a word is used in an ancient language. They look at all the usages of the word, not just in Scripture, but also in other Hebrew literature or sometimes Greek and Aramaic literature. And then they determine the definition of a word like that. There is no Hebrew lexicon or dictionary that I'm aware of that ties the word Chodesh to the sun or a solar month. Always to a lunar month. A big proof to show that the word Chodesh has a lunar meaning is with a couple of texts in 1 Kings that use the word Chodesh interchangeably with another Hebrew word, yerach. Okay, now look at these two texts. One's in 1 Kings 6:38, 1 Kings 8 verse 2. You'll never get this from just reading the English. This is why it's good for us also to know some Hebrew. 1 Kings 6:38 says, in the 11th year, in the month Bul, which is the 8th month, the house was finished throughout all its parts, so forth and so on. Same English word used twice in the verse, month, but each time it's a different Hebrew word. In the month yerach, Bul, which is the 8th month, Chodesh. So Chodesh and yerach are used interchangeably there. This is extremely important. This is a big, big proof here. 1 Kings 8 verse 2 says the same thing pretty much. All the men of Israel assembled themselves to the King Solomon at the feast in the month, that's yerach, Ethanim, which is the 7th month, Chodesh. Once again, two words in Hebrew, one English translation. It would have been better, I think, if the translators would have put in the moon Ethanim, or in the moon Bul, which is the 8th month, so forth and so on. So this word yerach is translated as month in Scripture, like when back in Exodus chapter 2, when Jochebed hid her little baby for 3 months. Remember, he would later be named Moses because he was taken from the water. Well, she hid him for 3 months. That word months there is actually not Chodesh, it's the word yerach. Yerach is a word that definitely means moon. Sometimes it's translated as moon. So it's translated as month, but it's directly translated as moon in Deuteronomy 33:14 and Isaiah 60 verse 20. Deuteronomy 33:14, for the precious things of the fruits of the sun, for the precious things that the moon can yield, yerach. Isaiah 60:20, your sun will not go down anymore, nor will your moon, yerach, withdraw itself, for Yahweh will be your everlasting light, and the days of your mourning will end. So since Hodesh can be used interchangeably with yerach, we can know for certain that the word Hodesh refers not just to any month, like January, February, March, or a solar month with the sun passing through a zodiac sign, but Hodesh has to refer to a lunar month, else it could not be used interchangeably with yerach, a word that means moon. I want you to look here at Gesenius' definition of the word yerach. Up here at the top, from right to left, that's yod. And that next letter is a reysh. And then the next letter is a hey. So what we would transliterate that in English as YRH, because Hebrew is right to left. So you could pronounce that. One way to pronounce that would be yerach with the vowel pointings underneath. And then we look down here at the definition. Once again, it's number 3391, which ties it to Strong's, yerach. I've written that out right there. But it's a month, which amongst the Hebrews was lunar. Compare, and it's got these foreign words right here, Greek and I think maybe German. But a rarer word, in other words, yerach is not used as often as the word Hodesh in the Hebrew Bible. And one used by the older writers gives Exodus 2 verse 2. That's what I mentioned about Jochebed hiding her baby boy for 3 months. By poets, it mentions Deuteronomy 33 and then some text in Job. And it says, see, however, 1 Kings 6, 37, 38, and 1 Kings 8 verse 2, which we went over those. This helps us see that Hodesh is a lunar word. Now, the next slide will show something even more interesting when we look at another Hebrew word that is related to the word yerach. This Hebrew word is yareach. Now, what's interesting here, I want you to notice carefully that with yerach, we look over here and it's spelled yod, reysh, hey, YRH. Look up at the word yareach, which is a different number in Strong's, different pronunciation, but look at how it's spelled. Yod, reysh, hey, YRH. Exact same spelling in Hebrew. The only difference is, see these little dots and dashes under the letters? That is Hebrew vowel pointings. Masoretic vowel pointings is what they call. These were added later to the Hebrew text. So the only difference is the little bitty dots and dashes and vowel points up underneath the words. But the consonants, identical word. All right? While yerach 3391 is translated as both month and moon in Hebrew Scripture, yareach, the word up top, is the Hebrew word that means the moon. It's like when we say the moon, referring to the orb of light at night, the Hebrews would call that the yareach. For example, Psalm 8 verse 3, when I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained. What is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou visitest him? Thou come to see him. That lets me know in Psalm 8 that the moon and the stars have something to do with knowing when Yahweh will come and visit us. I believe it's on his holy days. But that word moon in Psalm 8, yareach. Psalm 104 verse 19, a famous verse, popular verse around here. He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth it's going down. You know what the word moon there is in Psalm 104:19? It's the word yareach. Okay? Referring to the orb of the moon. Don't forget that the word Hodesh, the predominant word for month in the Hebrew Bible, is related to both of these words, as we're seeing in Hebrew Scripture. Psalm 104:19. Speaking of Psalm 104:19, now that we know the word yareach is related in Hebrew Scripture to yerach and Hodesh, Look at these three scriptures. Psalm 104:19, He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knows when to set. Genesis 1:14, the Almighty said, Let there be lights, of which the moon is one of them. It's the lesser light. It's a great light, but it's lesser than the sun. Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs to mark seasons, days, and years. That word seasons there in Genesis 1:14 and the word seasons in Psalm 104:19 is the Hebrew word moedim. It means appointed times, feasts or festivals. And we know this from Leviticus 23 verse 2. Speak to the children of Israel and tell them the set feasts, moedim, of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my set feasts. So in Psalms, we're told that the moon, specifically, the yareach, is directly tied to the moedim. Remember back in Genesis, seasons equals festivals. The HCSB says festivals. This does not negate the sun. The sun definitely plays a part. Its setting is mentioned in Psalm 104. The sun knows when to set. And it's definitely mentioned in Genesis 1 as well. But I'm just pointing out here that the moon plays a special role in telling us when the moedim are. And then Leviticus 23 would speak to us about the feasts of Yahweh, the moedim of Yahweh. So these three scriptures are tied together, and they teach us that the sun and the moon, specifically the moon, Psalm 104:19, mark the festivals, the feasts. And I'll just mention briefly that the Sabbath is the first feast that's listed in Leviticus 23. And so I would expect, if it's the first feast, I would expect to be able to know when the Sabbath is by watching the sun and the moon. And I believe we do. We know when the Sabbath begins and ends by the sun, and we know which day is the Sabbath by the moon. As a matter of fact, if you just kept the sun in the sky and you removed the moon from the sky, what would make one day different from the next? We would gradually feel the temperature get different. But the reason one day is different from the next is because the moon changes shape all through the month, the lunar month, the Chodesh. Next, I want to go to the Greek Septuagint. Now, we're still on the point about the Hebrew words for month. Chodesh, yerach, and yareach. But now we're going to move from that to the Septuagint. Now, the Septuagint is the Greek translation of the Old Testament. Same Bible. As a matter of fact, it is the oldest complete Bible in existence known to man. It's the Greek Septuagint. It began to be translated in the BC era, about 250 BC, before the time of our Messiah, for his birth. And it was written so that Greek-speaking Jews in Egypt would have a Bible to read. Greek was what was called the lingua franca of the time, pretty much the universal language. Similar to how English is today. Now, a lot of people, no matter where you go, will still speak English. That's how it was, and it was primarily because Alexander the Great was such a strong, great emperor. I'm not using the word great in the sense of righteous, but he was a strong emperor in that he conquered many nations, and in conquering those nations, Greek became the language of that nation. So the Septuagint is extremely important for our study. Most of the time when you read your New Testament and you see them say, "For it is written," and then they quote something from the Old Testament, approximately 80% of the time, the quote is directly from the Greek Septuagint, Old Testament. This is why I've had some people come up to me and say, "Brother Matthew, I read a quote from the New Testament, and then I went back to the Old Testament verse where they were quoting from, and it didn't read the same in the Old Testament. It read different." But you pick up a Greek Septuagint and you'll see that the New Testament author was quoting from the Greek Old Testament. So that's another study for another time. But the Septuagint is very important. So there are several places where the Septuagint translates Chodesh from Hebrew into Greek with a word called pneumania. Pneumania. That's there on the screen. Pneumania, that's the Greek translation of the word Chodesh. Just like our English translation of Chodesh would be month or moon, in Greek it would be main or pneumania. And pneumania is defined by both Strong's and Thayer's Greek lexicons as festival of the new moon festival. Now, I want you to notice the word main in the word pneumania. It looks like the word men, M-E-N, but it's pronounced Maine, M-E-I-N, or like the state of Maine. That's the Greek word for month. And my Kittle's Theological Dictionary of the New Testament, it defines the word Maine first as moon and then as month. So the word Maine functions just like the Hebrew word chodesh. It can mean either month or it can reference a new moon. There's a time in 1 Chronicles specifically where it references new moons. So the thing is, with the Greek language, there's another word. You don't just have the word Maine, you have the word pneumania. That's used in Greek literature, Septuagint, the New Testament. Remember Colossians 2:16? Let therefore no man judge you in eating or in drinking or in respect of the Sabbath, the new moon, or holy days. That word new moon in Colossians, you know what it is? The Greek? Pneumania. It means the festival of the new moon. So the Greek text uses pneumania. It leaves us no doubt that the festival of the new moon is in view when that word is used. Now we look at the English words for month and the English word moon. Our word moon is derived from that Greek word main. M-E-I-N in Greek, which means moon or month. That's where we get the word moon. Merriam-Webster's dictionary here on the left, noun and verb, Middle English mone from Old English mona, akin to Old High German mono, moon, Latin mensis, month, Greek main, month, or mene, moon. And then over here, this is an online etymological dictionary. And then at the bottom, I have it underlined Greek, mene, moon, main, month, Latin mensis, month. The point is that when we use the word moon, it's based upon the Greek language, which means the orb in the sky. This is why our word moon by itself shows us that the months used to be by the moon, simply when you use the word moon, because that's how it was used in Greek and in Latin as well. The point here is that in the Septuagint, it is undeniable that the translators understood that the Hebrew months were lunar, because the Greek words that they used, main and pneumania, are lunar words in the Greek language. Before we move, anybody got any questions or comments or anything? Sister Lisa, I can count on you, sister.
Back when you were referencing Psalms 104:19,
Mm-hmm.
and you said that the moon was for seasons, which Hebrew word was that? Was that the yerach or yareach?
Yareach. Yeah, yareach. Yeah, so the 3-syllable one. Yeah, they're used interchangeably, but it is the longer one when you look at the Hebrew text. Okay, anybody else?
I just have something else.
Yeah,
to
go
say.
ahead.
I mean, just
Sure.
something I was noticing.
Sure.
And then I know then you made the point that the yareach refers to the physical moon,
Yes.
and the yerach refers more to like a point in time that the moon represents during the
You got
month,
it. You got
during
it.
the whole
Yeah.
month.
Yeah. Yerach is mostly translated month, but yerach can be both moon and month. It's definitely a lunar word, but if you want a specific word that means the orb of the moon, yareach. Yeah.
Well, it seemed like the yareach was used more like when a specific month was being referenced, like the 7th month, or and I think in I guess it was, when was it that the baby Exodus 2?
Exodus 2. Mm-hmm.
That was yareach.
That
Because wasn't it?
was yerach.
That was yerach.
Yeah.
Okay, but the other two, Deuteronomy and Isaiah, I think, they were talking about specific, the first month, second month, third. I think one was, I don't remember which months it was.
That was 1 Kings, where it was talking about the month Bul or the month Ethanim.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were yerach. Both of those were yerach. Just the 2-syllable word.
Oh, they were?
Yeah. Yeah. So the word yerach, the two syllables, yod, reysh, and hey, that can mean either moon or month. Just like Hodesh. Hodesh can mean a whole month or the festival of the new moon. If you want a word that specifically means the orb of the moon, it's the longer word, the yareach, the 3-syllable word.
Okay.
Yeah. I know it's hard to keep them all together.
It just seemed like one of them, and I guess it was the yerach, when they was specifically referring to a month of the year, whether it be the first, second, third, fourth, whichever, it used that word. But when it was the other references, there wasn't a specific month that it was referring to.
I see what you're saying.
What I'm saying.
Yeah, I follow what you're saying. That's interesting. I haven't thought about that, but that's something to meditate on there. Anybody else before we go to the next couple of verses? Everybody's good? All right, so let's look at 2 more verses. Numbers 10:10. I want to look at both of these in the Septuagint. Numbers 10:10 says, in the Septuagint, and this is very small writing here, but you see it's at the top of the screen. It says, and in the days of your gladness, and in your feasts, and in your new moons, ye shall sound with the trumpets at your whole burnt offerings, and at the sacrifices of your peace offerings, and there shall be a memorial for you before your mighty one. I am Yahweh, your mighty one, or the Lord your God there. So here in the Septuagint, if you look right here where it says your new moons, I've got a line drawn. If you go back over here to the Greek, and I know we don't read Greek here, but that is the word pneumania. So there's no doubt about it here in Numbers 10 verse 10 that the new moons, the pneumania, are being referenced here. Now if you compare, this is the Greek Old Testament, compare that with the Hebrew Old Testament down here. This is from the King James Version, right there at the top. Also in the days of your gladness, or the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and notice, and in the beginnings of your months, you shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings, so forth and so on. That in the beginnings of your months, that translates from the Hebrew, Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month. But in the Greek Septuagint, it says, in your new moons. So when we compare the Greek with the Hebrew, it's telling us that the beginnings of the months is at the pneumania, or at the new moon. So this is a passage from the Septuagint that shows that the months were lunar. Not just any months, but the months that the Hebrews actually went by. Now this next one, this is our last slide for the study today. This next one is even more powerful. It's even plainer. Because here in the Septuagint, it calls the first day of the first month, which has to be the Hebrew calendar month, the month that the Hebrews went by, it calls it the new moon and uses the word pneumania. So the picture above on the top is from the Greek text of Brenton's translation of the Septuagint, and the picture below is a larger font in English. So I want to read Exodus 40, 1 through 2 here at the top. It says, and the Lord, or Yahweh, spoke to Moses, saying, on the first day of the first month at the new moon. And that new moon right there, go down here, it's the Greek word pneumania. So it's calling the first day of the first month, Main, or Mene, the pneumania, the new moon. Now this is exactly what the bottom says. This is the Brenton translation. You can see it a little bit better. On the first day of the first month at the new moon, thou shalt set up the tabernacle of witness. It doesn't read exactly like that in the Hebrew. The Hebrew doesn't contradict it. It just says, set up the tabernacle on the first day of the first month. That's how it says in Hebrew. But the Septuagint, it adds at the new moon, proving that the month here, when the tabernacle was set up, was a lunar month. It wasn't a solar month. It wasn't a month from the Zadok calendar, as they call it, where they boot the moon out. This was a lunar month. If you continue to read in Exodus 40 verse 17 in the Septuagint, it says that Moses did exactly what Yahweh commanded him to do. He set up the tabernacle at the new moon, the new moon of Abib, the first moon of the year. So this solidifies that the Hebrew months by which they kept track of time, they were lunar months. Before we close out and get ready for the service, you got something, Brother Jerry?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I like it. What helps, what's so just supernatural to understand is it's unchangeable. You know, the moon is unchangeable. Man can't mess with that. The calendar's been changed all through the years.
Yes.
And the moon is established. And I think that's so beautiful because when I first seen the month, and when I first found out it was moon, Brother Tim Wellington brought that to my attention one day, and it says like in there, it'll say the 17th day of the third moon, you know, and it's like it just, man, how is it deniable, you know?
Yeah.
And then I also thought, you know, I'm not trying to, I don't know who keeps the Sabbath on what day or whatever, but anyway, you know, a lot of the Saturday, seventh day, you know, which we used to do the Sabbath on Saturday. Sure. And but we pulled our day, the seventh day, from the calendar.
Yeah.
And how would we establish the Sabbath if we didn't have that calendar? You know, that was, you know, somebody keeps the Sabbath, that keeps Saturday. If you took that calendar away from them, how would they establish it? They wouldn't know how to establish it. But and then again, the seventh day we pull from the calendar is full of paganism. It has everything, all the names of the month and everything in there is pagan and stuff. Everything in that whole calendar ain't hardly nothing in there right.
Yeah.
And yet a man pulls his Sabbath day from it. And but that's that's helped me so much. And I really believe this right here, that if you took me and you put me on an island, and you put Brother Matthew on another island, and you put somebody else in those, I mean, I don't know how to read the moon, but I'm better at it than what I used to be. And I believe if you give us a shot and knock us out, and we woke up, we don't know how long we had slept. You know, we didn't know if we slept 2 days, 1 day, or 4 days. How would we find the Sabbath? You know, and I really believe through time that we would occasionally, if we know anything about the moon, I believe if Matthew's on this island, if somebody's on this island, I'm on this island, I really believe occasionally we would be keeping the same day. After a period of time, you would learn to watch the moon, and you would keep the Sabbath on the same day because of the moon.
Yeah.
Now that's just fantastic. That's just
beautiful.
I've seen it all my life.
Beautiful.
I've seen that moon all my life and never understood what it was for.
Beautiful.
You know, it's just a great thing. That's in depth to me right there. You know.
Yes. Those are great points you bring up there, Brother Jerry.
That's definitely in depth to me, and I need that. So I like your remembrance, brother. You got a good remembrance. There's no way I can spit them words out.
Well, yeah, just it's a lot of practice, but I got notes too, so I don't remember everything. But I do want to say this, and you thought about something. One of the things when I talk to somebody that doesn't know anything that what we're talking about, and I try to, you know, relate to people on their level, is the number one thing I always bring up when they say, you go by the moon, or what in the world? And I'll say, what? Have you ever thought about when a husband and wife get married, and what do they go on? And they'll say they're going on a honeymoon. The word honeymoon refers to used to be to the first month of a newlywed's marriage. And they would go and spend that month together, and the honey actually, if you study this out, the honey actually refers, anybody ever heard of honey ale? But it refers to the sweetness of the alcohol that they would partake of together in the first moon or month of their marriage. And that automatically gets people like, I never thought about that. You know, and then you tell them the relation of the English word moon to month and all of that, where we get our word moon. Brother Tim would say month when he would read. It was the 10th month, he would say that. And that kind of helps you in your mind there. And Brother Gary Wayne Carlstrom, he brings up how that a lot of the old Native Americans, the Indians, they would say, many moons ago.
Yeah.
How many moons has it been since this and since that?
How they base their travel.
How they base their travel. How many moons have went by.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about this. My goal is, because this takes a lot of preparation on top of the sermon that I teach at the Holy Convocation, but my goal is to have these studies at least once a month on the full moon, when our Sabbath is at the second Sabbath of the month on the full moon. So we'll do this again next full moon, and we'll go over however many points, around an hour. And I think it'll get a little bit more interesting, because there's a lot more that goes along with this. So everybody's mind clear?
Okay.
Brother Ron, go ahead.
I ask you all the time about moon. I still don't have it down pat. That's the reason I can count on you to get me around. But the moon, you talk about it shining. Would you go from right to left or left to right?
Mm-hmm.
Get to starting a new moon. Do it
Yes.
start on the left or do it start on the right?
That's a great point. I brought this up to people. When you think about the moon waxing, which waxing means growing, waning. You've heard of the waning moon. That means lessening. Think about right hand in Scripture. Often in Scripture, the right hand refers to authority, strength, and might. When the moon waxes or when it grows, the light of the moon will always build on the right side. It starts on the right side. Yep.
Okay.
There'll be some times of the year when you see the first crescent of the moon after the new moon is over. You'll see the first crescent of the moon, and the moon will almost be like upside down, like a bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it starts to build, it'll always build from the right side when it's light.
And on the left.
On the left.
But in the
Yep.
middle is the new moon, right? When you get to the...
Well, when it gets full of light, that's the full moon.
Yeah.
And what's the opposite of full of light? No moon. That's the new moon. That's when the moon is renewing. When the moon goes away, it never goes away. It's still up there. but when the light dies out, that's when the moon is renewing itself at the time of conjunction. So when you see the light on the right, if you look up in the sky and see the light on the right, you know it's building. Full moon obviously is the middle of the month. Then when you see the light on the left, you know it's waning, it's going down. And I was like Brother Jerry. I remember when we first started studying about the moon and keeping lunar Sabbaths back in late 1999. That's when I really first started watching the moon. All my life I knew it was up there, but I never really paid it much attention. But then when we started actually tracking our Sabbaths by it, it made me look at it all the time. Before I had only looked at it on the feast days, annual feast days, we'll say. Passover, tabernacles, things like that. But then in late 99 and going into the year 2000, I remember I got old charts and notebooks where I had written in pencil, where I'd watch it and I'd make notes and I'd look up in encyclopedias and where it would talk about the waning gibbous and the waxing gibbous and all this kind of stuff and all these technical terms, and a lot of it you don't really even need to know. The Hebrew and the Greek is good to know, but yeah, that'll help you if you watch it. So if you're able to see it tonight, it's the moon usually looks full 2 or 3 nights every month. The moon will, if you're able to see it tonight, it'll be at the fullness of the moon.
So when it starts, the new crescent you're talking about, right? And that starts, it might fall on, next month fall on a Thursday or something when it starts. So that starts to establish the Sabbath, right?
Yeah, the new moon the way we do it, the new moon establishes the Sabbath. The new moon is not the visual crescent. The visual crescent is what lets you know that really the new moon is completed.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's 28 days of light in the moon. Philo talks about this, and we'll get into this next time. Philo talks about 28 days of light in the moon. But yet in a lunar month, you have approximately, or as an average, 29 and a half days. So if there's 28 days of light in the moon, then there's a day or a day and a half where the moon is, there's no light in the moon. It's still up there. It's still up there. And some people debate whether the moon gets its light as reflected light from the sun. That's pretty popular in science. There are some people that I know that believe that the moon has light of its own. It's a possibility too. And when you read the scripture, it looks like the moon has light of its own. But regardless, we know that it has light somehow, and that light changes shapes, and it's not up there changing shape as a coincidence.
That's right. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. So, praise Yah. We good?
Good.
All right. Praise Yahweh. Let's. I'm gonna get ready for the Sabbath service, and everybody can. Y'all want to get some more coffee or tea? Or